outcry and turn it into an opportunity, a moment of national action. For weeks now, in protests across our land, millions of fellow Americans have been rising up and speaking out to demand justice, accountability, opportunity, and above all, the equality promised by our founders 244 years ago. This latest movement may have been sparked by the senseless killing of George Floyd, a black man at the hands of public safety officers. One officer sworn to protect and defend him knelt on his neck for 9 minutes, extinguishing his life. But this movement is about so much more. The pain and anger, the anguish that has burst forth from the hearts of black Americans everywhere runs far deeper than a single tragedy. It is a pain born of endless string of tragedies. The senseless killings of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, of Eric Garner and Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland, of Freddie Gray, of Michael Brown, of Trayvon Martin, and more, so many more, black and men and women who should be alive today, of Rayshard Brooks, shot in the back by a police officer who died this past Friday night. It is a pain born even before we were yet a country, when more than 400 years ago, traders kidnapped Africans from their own lands, brought them here to these shores, American shores, sold them, locked them into generations of brutal slavery, treated not as people, but as property, chained, sold, whipped, raped, treated as something less than human. Our nation has never come to terms with this legacy. There's no memorial on the National Mall. There's no Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So still, today, America's gaping wound of racism bleeds pain and injustice. And inequality continues to plague every system in our country. Too many black men and women have lost their livelihoods, their lives, their dignity, to a justice system rigged against them. Racial profiling, mandatory minimums, stop and frisk, acts of racial profiling and racially driven predatory actions. We entrust to our public safety officers vast power to serve their communities. But have we ensured that that vast power is exercised equally on behalf of all citizens? We have not. Too often, forces, public safety forces, police forces, treat white citizens as clients and black citizens as a threat. That is systemic racism, and it must change. It's why I'm so proud to stand here in support of Senator Booker and Senator Harris' sweeping Justice in Policing Act reform bill. We need to hold officers accountable for their actions. We need to change the culture of policing in America. And this legislation is the right law at the right moment to begin to do that. No one should ever be profiled based on the color of their skin. Chokeholds like the one that killed Eric Garner must be a thing of the past. No-knock warrants like the one that ended with Breonna Taylor being shot to death in her bed should no longer exist. And under Justice in Policing Act, these will be gone. And when a public safety officer misuses the immense power of his or her badge, that misuse must be investigated, must be documented, must be penalized, and the record of that abuse must be public. That is the essence of accountability that goes hand in hand with the responsibility and the power that goes with wearing the badge. Never again should an officer who has been fired for abusing their power be able to go down the road and be hired by another department and be able to continue abusive practices in a new setting. That's why I've advocated for a national database of police misconduct to achieve this outcome. And it's why I'm so pleased that Senator Booker has included such a database in the Justice in Policing Act. In 1968, the Kerner Commission was examining the source of the demonstrations a year before, concluded bad policing practices, a flawed justice system, unscrupulous consumer credit practices, poor or inadequate housing, high unemployment, voter suppression, and other culturally embedded forms of racial discrimination converged to propel violent upheaval on the streets of African American neighborhoods in American cities, north, south, east, and west. Doesn't that sound familiar, all too familiar here, 52 years later, half a century later? One person testifying in commission said, "I read the report of the 1919 riot in Chicago, and it's as if I was reading the investigative report on the Harlem riot of 1935, the reporting of the investigating committee of the riot of 43, the report of the McCone Commission on the Watts riot. I must say in candor to members of this commission, it's a kind of Alice in Wonderland, with the same moving picture shown over and over again, the same analysis, the same recommendations, and the same inaction." That's why I'm standing on the floor in support of this act, because inaction is not acceptable. Let the same not be said about this moment years from now. Today is a moment for a day of action, for greater investments in affordable housing and decent communities, in schools and teachers in minority communities, for greater investments in black business owners, and early education programs like Head Start. It's a time to ensure that every American truly has the right to vote, free from voter suppression and voter intimidation. This Friday, our nation will once again recognize and celebrate Juneteenth, the day when slavery officially ended in this country 155 years ago. Let this Juneteenth stand as a day for all of us to reflect on the calls for justice crying out across our land. Now is a time to be agents of change. Yes, to listen to the voice of the people, to join with those who have taken to the streets, enduring the rubber bullets and the batons and the tear gas to stand up for what's right. Now is the moment to stand shoulder to shoulder with our fellow Americans who have had enough of the suffering, of the inequality, of the injustice. So together, we can help our nation live up to the ideal of a land where everyone, no matter the color of their skin, is treated with the dignity and the respect and the opportunity and the equality equal to all others.
Madam President.
The senator from Virginia is recognized.
Madam President, on Saturday, I attended a rally for justice sponsored by two young women, one a high schooler and one a middle schooler, in my hometown. The rally was one of numerous marches and rallies that have occurred every day, sometimes multiple times a day, in Richmond in the weeks after the horrific public murder of George Floyd. Hundreds of people gathered in the Maggie L.